As you know, my friends, for the last several decades, my focus has been on who we are at the core of our being, who we are. Are we a body that has a mind? Are we a mind that has a body? Is the brain doing the mind? Is the mind doing the brain? Are they doing each other? Are they entangled expressions of a deeper reality? On and on. And actually, you might wonder what's the purpose of all this anyway? Is this just what some people call intellectual masturbation? So, whatever it is, I think there's no more important quest than to know ourselves. If we don't know ourselves, how can we know anything? So, of course, this has been the quest and subject of inquiry across disciplines, from philosophy to metaphysics to biology and neuroscience. So today I want to offer you a perspective that is at first glance probably astonishing and bizarre, but here it is. I believe that all biological organisms, including us, Homo sapiens, and their perceived worlds, so all biological organisms have a particular perceived world. You and I experiencing what we might call the human universe. But then there are all these other biological organisms that have their own perceived worlds. And I'm suggesting that these are all models of reality. I hesitate to use the word merely models of reality, but that could be true. Merely models of reality, while reality itself is the source of all these models, which is, of course, pure consciousness. So, what I'm asserting right now invites you to explore the entanglement between consciousness, perception, and the fundamental of existence. By examining how organisms construct models of reality, how consciousness underpins these processes, perhaps we can gain insight into the profound relationship between life and the ultimate nature of reality. Let's try and unpack this if we can. Biological organisms are inherently equipped to perceive and interact with their environments. From this, and remember, what I'm sharing with you is a dualistic model. In the deeper reality, even that is inappropriate, but we live in a world where we perceive duality, even if it's non-dual. So let's look at the dualistic model because it's our experience of life. From the simplest single-cell organisms to complex beings like us, humans, life forms have evolved mechanisms to interpret external stimuli for survival and reproduction. Again, the dualistic model. However, these interpretations are not direct representations of reality, but are instead models, simplified frameworks that allow organisms to navigate their worlds efficiently. For instance, human beings rely on sensory organs such as eyes and ears and skin to gather information about the external environment, not to mention taste and smell. This sensory data is processed by the brain, and again, I'm only using right now the scientific dualistic model, which I believe is incomplete, but This is the model that, in a sense, represents our experience of everyday reality. So, this sensory data is processed by the brain to construct a coherent picture of the world, a model that aligns with our evolutionary needs. Similarly, other species perceive reality differently based on their unique biological structures. A bat's echolocation system or a bee's ability to see ultraviolet light demonstrates that each organism creates a subjective version of reality tailored to its survival needs. So these models are inherently limited. They do not encompass the entirety of reality, but rather serve as functional approximations. So humans possess a unique capacity for abstract thought, self awareness, and creativity, which allows them to construct highly sophisticated models of reality. Language, art, science, philosophy are expressions of humanity's attempts to understand and represent the world. Despite these advancements, our perceived world remains a subjective interpretation shaped by cultural conditioning, personal experiences, and cognitive biases. The concept of perceived worlds implies that every individual experiences reality differently. For example, two people witnessing the same event may interpret it in vastly different ways due to their personal histories and mental frameworks, not to mention different organisms perceive reality totally differently. But in the sense that I'm speaking right now, Homo sapiens do not access reality directly, but instead experience filtered versions shaped by their minds. And mind, of course, is the conditioning of pure consciousness. So this aligns with the idea that perception is not passive but active, a dynamic process in which humans construct meaning from sensory fluctuations. So if reality is not our perceived world or even our perceived body, then what is it? And here I would suggest it is pure consciousness. I know this challenges the physicalist construct of reality, which is supposed to be independent of awareness, something we can't actually prove. If there's a reality independent of awareness, then it's not only unknown, it's unknowable. Anyway, what I'm suggesting is that consciousness is not a product of biological processes, but the fundamental essence from which all existence arises. So, in this framework, pure consciousness is infinite, timeless, unchanging, as I've said, borderless, ungraspable ultimately, shapeless, and formless, and yet the substratum underlying all phenomena. So, what I'm saying is that the material world is an illusion, and it's our case, it's a human illusion. But there are other illusions as well. The crocodile's illusion, the crocodile itself being an illusion, the honeybee's illusion, honeybee itself being part of the illusion, on and on. So modern science, of course, offers intriguing insights into this idea, where quantum physics has revealed that all this at the subatomic level, matter behaves in ways that challenge notions of objective reality. The observer effect observes that consciousness plays an active role in shaping physical phenomena. But I'm going beyond that. I'm saying that the observer, the observation, and that which is observed all exist in superposition in pure consciousness. And they're all actually fluctuations of pure consciousness. as different biological organisms. So reality is inseparable from awareness, pure consciousness, both the observer and the observed and the observing. So if we understand biological organisms as models within pure consciousness and entangled models in an ecosystem of models or or models or ideas or constructs, then we can see there's a bridge between science and spirituality in meaningful ways. So when we acknowledge the limitations of perception while pointing toward a deeper truth, reality cannot be fully grasped through sensory intellectual means alone. So this, what I'm saying, is acknowledging the limitations of perception and pointing toward a deeper truth as well. And of course, meditative practices across cultures aim to facilitate this realization by quieting the mind's constant modeling activity and showing individuals to experience reality as it truly is, unfiltered by thoughts or perceptions. By the way, what I'm saying, even the mind is a model. So that is what I wanted to share. But then if we go a little deeper into this, it gets more interesting. And that is that we, as biological species, as a biological organism, are neither the mind nor the body, nor the experience of the physical world, but an underlying reality that experiences itself as different models of reality. And these models are biological organisms. That's it. They're all biological organisms are models, instruments. And the instrument itself is a modified form of a species specific modulation of pure consciousness. And all these modulations are entangled in an ecosystem of modulations, giving rise to almost as many universes as there are instruments to observe the universe, considering that every biological organism is an instrument. Tell me what you think. Why is this helpful? Well, if you understand that this is a model, then we can also understand that in model making, models are recycled but then also evolve. You know, today's BMWs, the Mercedes, are not like the first automobile. Today's jet planes and intergalactic probes and whatever, ships we send into space, those are not the same thing as the Wright brothers, the bicycle makers, created as the first airplane. So this is a particular model of reality that has been recycling since ancient times and also evolving. And that evolution is a never-ending horizon. Don't confuse the model with who you are. Just like we don't confuse the menu with the meal or the map for the territory or the screen for the movie or the movie for the screen, all kind of metaphors. Let me know if you found this useful and do share if you think it's interesting.